informational things in school, such as what your favorite color is, but they didn't do the substantive materials that they should have covered, and that's a detriment to everybody.
Christina, what do you remember about that time?
It was extremely challenging because we would spend hours at a time, like 4 or 5 hours every day, to stare at the screen and ultimately not learn what we really need to learn. And hopefully we will never have to go through this again, because we should not be locked, the children, we should not be locked up in our homes, not being able to go to school like we normally did. Our entire normalcy, all the stability of going to school was erased. And hopefully, the state test scores will be brought back as admissions criteria for middle and high schools, because it is an objective way to see where students can use help after all this learning loss that we have suffered through.
Irene, was it hard for you because things are different now in school? Like, there's new math. We all learned how to do math a different way. Was it hard to help her with her homework or to help her with her assignments?
Absolutely. We had to not only endure watching our children suffer in isolation, but we had to now become teachers all of a sudden, and most of us are not teachers by trade. So we had to explain concepts in science and math that we just didn't know how to explain, because they're different from what we learned when we were younger. So we had to resort to Google and YouTube videos to figure out how do we explain it to them, because there was no one-on-one with the teacher where they could, how they ordinarily explain material to kids that didn't exist.
Right. Dave, do you remember we were getting packets, and they would say, okay, print out every packet, and then we're going to sit in front of the computer. I had to make sure my computer was charged. I had a printer, I had ink, I had paper. I was like trying to do that and balance, a career, which it's my job. I'm the parent. I enjoyed a lot of it. But I was also stressed out that I was going to forget something, or I was not going to do something properly. I wasn't going to have the right sheets. Did you go through any of that, the stress?
Yeah, I mean, the stress was absolutely, it was really bad on our family. And I mean, thankfully, I have a very supportive wife who is fantastic. But, it's a team job, and like, you got to learn to do things, and you have to learn to do things differently. You have to evolve. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. We didn't know what was going to happen. We lived close to NYU Hospital, and we were seeing, the trucks outside. It was a very difficult time, and we didn't know what was going on. So, it was kind of, you look at it back at it now, and it comes up, and you're like, wow, I can't believe we went through that and we made it through it.
Especially knowing now, when we have some of the scientific research, we didn't even have to go through all of that. Right. So that's really it's mind-blowing, mind-boggling when you look back at it. But thank y'all so much. I hope we don't ever have to go through it again. Y'all are so cute. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, we have jurors in the high-stakes double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh. They're set to visit the scene of the crime today as the defense rests its case. Fox Nation host Nancy Grace is going to join us live from outside of the courthouse in South Carolina with what we can expect today. And Brian is having breakfast with our wonderful friends down in Ponte Vedra Beach, down in Florida. Hey, Brian.
Yeah, great aim to interview, Ainsley. This is Sage Grace. Sage, you're running the Metro Diner. How are things going?
Things are going great.
The number one thing on the menu is?
Fried chicken and waffles.
Right, and what have you done to fight inflation?
Well, we've done everything we can to keep the prices about where they were, but I mean, with everything going up, it's been difficult.
It's been difficult.
Absolutely.
You guys like the Metro Diner? Mark, how has inflation affected you?
We have to really watch our expenses. Everything's gone up, air travel. It just affected every part of our business, insurance, things like that for a small business. Really have to be careful. Right. One thing I wanted to...
Real quick.
What about the national deficit? Nobody's talking about it this morning.
I would love to see the next president tackle it right away, because we're paying a ton of interest. Thanks so much for everything, Shane. It's been fantastic.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, Sage, I should say. Back at...
It's very troubling. I'm joined by Courtney Miller today. Courtney, you told me that you were having trouble breathing, that you heard that there were some young children that got toxic burns from the creek and chemical bronchitis. Tell me about that. What happened?
There was a video that we have a lot of reporters out here, and there was a video of a young woman who has 5 children, and she has a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old that had burns and rashes on their skin after having bathed in the water. And I mean, it looked horrible. It looked like actual burns, like heat burns, like sunburn, and they're suffering. They have chemical bronchitis. They're coughing up blood. And they don't live as close to the creek as I do, so it's even affecting people further out.
You've kept your 5 and your 9-year-old away. You have children. You won't let them come back here. How have you been feeling, and what have you done to your house so that you can try to cope with it?
Be 250
I've been losing my voice off and on. My lungs burn. I feel like I can't catch my breath, and Austin Air gave me an air purifier system that I put in my house, and I can finally breathe easier using that. But I still won't let my kids anywhere near this town, not even in my house. I won't let my kids come because I'm too afraid of what's happening to everyone else's children, let alone, I mean, I can protect my children by having them stay with their fathers. And when it is my turn during our shared custody, I take my kids to Pittsburgh and stay with my friend in Pittsburgh with my kids. I don't want them anywhere near this town.
You're angry. You told me you're angry. I'm a physician. If you haven't been to see a physician yet, if you were coming to me, what would you tell me and what would you want me to do about it? It doesn't sound like you think the EPA or anyone has done anything yet.
No, I believe that the chemicals have gone into our systems and everyone needs baseline blood work to see how much this is progressing and how badly it's getting. They're not drawing any attention to the people that are sick to treat them for what's going on with them. They're still making excuses and saying that it's not the chemicals, everything's fine, the water's fine, the air's fine, but it's not. It's not at all.
I'm very sorry that you're all going through this, and I agree with you that more should be done. Lawrence, back to you.
Doc, thanks so much for your reporting out there. Let's check in with our senior.
Thanks,
you got
Andrew.
it.
Thank
Our
you.
senior meteorologist, Janice Dean, for our Fox weather forecast. Hey, JD.
Hello, good morning. Of course, our prayers are out there for East Palestine, all the folks out there. We love you, and we pray for you. Okay, let's take a look at the messy weather here in New York. We were hoping for some snow, and my kids are really angry at me today. It's 33 with just a mess of slush and yuck and no snow here in New York City. I think the official total in Central Park is 1.8. Not good. And we have had an incredible snow deficit. North of us, that's where we're getting snow. Maybe I need to take the kids for a tour up towards Albany. Here are some of the New York top snow totals because some people did get some snow, over 6 inches on the Hudson there, and Putnam Valley 6.2, but really nothing here in New York City or south of us. Here's the future track of the storm. So it'll be out of here by tomorrow. And then we have another storm we're going to be talking about, bringing severe storms for Thursday and Friday for the south, some of the same areas that got hit by those tornadoes yesterday in Oklahoma. And then the West Coast, relentless rain and snow for you. It has been winter all season long for folks in the mountains of the West. We just haven't gotten a break here in the Northeast if you like the snow, and there's the snow still to come. So maybe we head to the mountains across the Sierra and California to get some snow this winter for the New York City
JD,
area.
Ainsley's upset with me because I didn't want any snow, and she did.
So you're happy.
Yeah, I'm happy.
I know. I apologize to Hayden and all the young kids who were hoping for a snow
I
day.
know, and to your boys too. Lawrence is from the South. I'm like, I grew up in the South too. We never got snow. Don't you like it?
It's nasty here.
I need to do a snow angel. I haven't been able to do one this season. I'm so disappointed.
Maybe in a few weeks. Might snow later.
I
Thanks,
hope so.
Janice.
You got it.
Coming up, we're going to go back out to the diner, the Metro Diner down in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, where Brian is with Leonard Skinner's Johnny Van Zandt.
But first, let's check in with Bill Hemmer for what's coming up at the top of the hour. Hey, Bill.
Good morning. Good show. Less than an inch you got in New York, right? It's already melted. Morning to you guys. Biden's student loan decision gets a stay at the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll break down the arguments coming up here. How much military equipment did we leave behind in Afghanistan? No one put a number on it until now, and it is staggering. Chicago votes.
And now they're celebrating their 50th year with yet another massive tour across America, and they start with Brandon, Mississippi. Let's go to Brandon. But right now, let's go return to the Metro Diner.
Hey.
Johnny Van Zandt.
How are you, buddy?
Fantastic. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, a round of applause for Jacksonville's own. First off, 50 years. I've watched you 3 separate times outside of Fox and Friends. Every time you get the stage, it seems like the first time. You love this. You love your audience.
Yeah, we do. We love being up there. You know what? The traveling, not so much these days because we're a little older.
Yeah.
But playing the shows are amazing things. I mean, it's Skinner crowds are, what can I say?
They're very red, white, and blue.
Yeah,
Did you
very,
notice that?
very red.
When did you
white.
realize that there's a patriotic strain through your audience?
You know, we came out with a song called Red, White, and Blue, and years ago. And when we wrote that song, we thought about what is a Skinner crowd? You know, what kind of person is, you know, a red, white, and blue in the Skinner crowd? And when we started doing that, we still do it to today. And that's whenever we really, really knew You know, hey, our crowd are true Americans, right?
And then, you've watched Jacksonville grow. I'm just hearing the stories since 1973.
Yeah.
Can you describe it? I mean, you don't live in this area in particular, but you live in the county, you live in the city.
Yeah.
So
I live out in
describe
Clay
what
County.
Jacksonville's like now.
Oh my gosh!
Compared to growing up.
Well, you know, first of all, we got the Jags, right? Hey, how about the Jags?
One of the hottest.
What? And when we finally got the team, you started seeing the city grow. And we have a long ways to go. I do agree that, especially downtown.
Right.
I'd like to see downtown grow a lot more and, you know, be more friendly.
You got a 4 seasons in there. They're expanding the practice facility. But it's got all this potential surrounded
All
by
the
water.
potential. Well, I mean, it's a beautiful city. Don't you guys agree? Yeah, we got a great city here.
Right.
Yeah.
Going out this year, 50th year.
50 years.
When you talk to the guys, what do they say? When you look back, I know you play Freebird in the back. Ronnie Van Zandt is singing in the backdrop.
Yeah, sure.
Does that ever not get emotional for you?
No, not at all. You know what? There's been so much loss. This band has had so much loss, but so much greatness too. And the fans are what really keeps the band going. I mean, anybody, if you look at life in general, if you're happy, you love music, you listen to music. If you're sad, you listen to music. And music has really brought us all together. And I got to say hello to the guys in the band too, by the way.
They watching?
Hi. Yeah. Are you kidding? We watch you guys all the time.
So I watched Luke Bryan go on and introduce the governor. And people went crazy. And afterwards, he got blowback, saying, why are you being political? Why are you bringing up a Republican governor? You wrote a song for Governor DeSantis.
I sure did. Me and my brother Donnie did.
So how did that come about?
We love our governor, right? I actually got a call from a girl that works for him named Janera. And she said, hey, the governor wants to speak to you. And I was like, well, what did I do wrong? And I actually thought it was a joke at first. And actually, he called me and said, listen, I want a song sort of like Sweet Home Alabama. And I said, well, I said, that one may be hard to do, but I might be able to write a song for you. So I called up my brother Donnie and said, listen, the governor wants us to write a song for him, for his campaign. And man, we wrote it, boom. It just came naturally, and what a wonderful guy. Him and his wife's just a lovely lady.
He used to live here, come to this diner, and he's got a young family.
Yeah, wonderful people.
Right. Have you in particular felt any blowback from supporting the governor? Right.
For supporting the governor? Yeah, well, you know, we have a thing called the internet, so... Yeah, there was some blowback, but you know, I don't care. You know what? We live in America. We're free. We're supposed to be able to believe in what we believe, whether it's on the left or the right. And this is what I believe, and I love our governor. I think he's done a great job. Everybody wouldn't want to be moving here, right, if it was a bad thing.
Now, I can't believe it, but Johnny Van Zandt has got a gift for me, I believe.
Well, it's for all of you guys.
For all of them?
No, well, we may be able to hook you up. But this is for Steve.
Okay.
I know you got one of those.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. This is for you. This is in celebration. We did a show at the Ryman for PBS. And that's going to be out, folks. You guys look for it this year. 50th anniversary, Lynyrd Skynyrd. And being that Ainsley is a good faith girl and believes in God, boom.
And I believe in Johnny. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. You get Lynyrd Skynyrd tickets on tour.
So the administration says this. They're relying on the HEROES Act, which was passed back in 2003. And the passage was about helping people who were forced to deploy after 9/11 with their student loans. This administration says they can also use it for the COVID emergency, which they also say is over May 11th officially. People who are critics of this say, listen, it is an issue with an executive branch. This administration has made a sweeping proclamation. It should have gone through Congress. If you'll remember, before he did this sweeping executive order on student loan forgiveness, the president said it would be questionable. Then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi said, no, you can't do it by executive order. It's got to be done through Congress. This court has been very prejudicial towards leaning in that direction, towards the legislative body. If they think an executive branch, whether it was President Trump, President Obama, President Biden, has overstepped. They will say this belongs across the street from here. It belongs in Congress. It should be legislated and not done with the stroke of a pen from the White House. We'll see if they feel that way about this. Remember, they struck down this administration's attempt to, through OSHA, make everybody that was a private employer mandate vaccines for everyone. They also pushed back on the CDC when they tried to put in an eviction ban during COVID. So it'll be interesting to see how they view this particular debate. It will affect millions of people. We do have two different sets of plaintiffs that have to get through that standing issue. Are they qualified to be the ones here as plaintiffs? So the court will have to get through that before they get to the merits. But in several hours of arguments today, we'll watch closely for any clues on how they're going to roll eventually.
Love having you opening us up today so we can get started on that debate. Thank you, Shannon Bream.
Thank you, Shannon. There are 5 states challenging. Nebraska's one of them. The AG's got a great piece today in the Wall Street Journal. Why we're challenging Biden's student debt power grab. The president flouted the law and used the pandemic as a pretext to claim breathtaking authority. Shannon's right about that. The court's already ruled twice now, overturning some of these mandates that have been in place for the U.S. In the meantime, the president's on record in that 60 Minutes interview in September saying pandemic's pretty much over. And then his counterpart in the House, Nancy Pelosi, kind of said the same thing, right, before he did. Listen here, July of 2021.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
Okay, so it would seem she agrees with the Republican AGs at that point, and then they changed their mind. And a lot of people think that that was just all because of politics. So this is going to get underway. And remember, you know, if you have a small business, you didn't go to college and take out that student loan, but you took out a student loan to buy your tools, you're not included in this. You're not even included in the lawsuit, but we're going to be paying attention to that issue for sure.
Starts at 10 o'clock. That's coming up. Plus, there's this. First, Ted Cruz from last night.
There are now tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of Americans that are not going to believe the next thing a scientist or doctor working for the government says.
Dr. Fauci telling all of us at the first origins of hearing about COVID in China that it did not come from China, that it could not come from that lab.
They told us that it wasn't gain-of-function research. It wasn't our tax dollars. It didn't come from a lab. No one believes anything these guys tell us.
Republican lawmakers say the credibility of many is now out the window. A new investigation from the Department of Energy says that COVID most likely leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China. But the Biden White House insists the conclusion is not etched in stone. That's where we find Peter Doocy, the follow-up on day 2 on this. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. And nobody around here is jumping to any kind of conclusions until some additional intel agencies say that COVID came from a lab.
Trying to find the origins of COVID a priority right when he came into office. And he's got a whole of government effort designed to do that. There is not a consensus right now in the U.S. government about exactly how COVID started.
That is disputed by many critics on Capitol Hill. However, some Trump-era health officials say the Biden administration is right to have the DOE in the lead.
Of note that both the FBI and now the Department of Energy have come to the conclusion that they believe this virus came from the Wuhan lab. And what's important about their workforce is they have an enormous, powerful scientific workforce. And I think they really did approach this in an aggressive scientific way.
Stories about the lab leak were dismissed at the time in favor of theories about somebody eating a sick bat at a wet market in Wuhan. And some progressives are now saying that based on what they know now, that was a mistake.
Jake, it was wrong. As you know, I'm a defender of the First Amendment, of free speech, and I think it was wrong to try to censor the folks who were arguing that it was an accidental leak from a lab. At the very least, we know it's a plausible theory if the Department of Energy has put this out.
President Biden hasn't said anything about this yet, and we don't expect him to say anything about it anytime soon. In fact, when we see him later on today in Virginia Beach, it's going to be to talk about healthcare.
Wow.
Bill.
Okay, Department of Energy, FBI, that's 2 so far. Peter, nice to see you. Peter Doocy from the North Lawn. Thank you. Dana.
Meantime, Republican Senator Tom Cotton has been saying for a long time that COVID may indeed have leaked from that Wuhan lab. And the mainstream media, you'll remember, they wasted no time piling on, accusing him of spreading debunked conspiracy theories. Now that new evidence appears to back him up, Cotton is ripping those reporters. Watch.
From the very beginning, I believe this virus almost certainly came from a lab. I thought it was just a matter of common sense. But what did the liberal media and what did Joe Biden and other Democrats do? When you point these things out, they called you a racist or a xenophobe. They said you were spreading conspiracy theories and all the rest. And now, 3 years on, I think most Americans recognize that it almost certainly came from that laboratory, that the Chinese communists covered it up.
And you'll remember, too, Bill, that if you said anything about the lab leak theory, like on Facebook, for example, you could get banned from the platform for suggesting this. They called it a fringe theory, but now you have the FBI with medium level of confidence that it came from a lab, and now the Department of Energy with the low level. But to me, you add those two together, that's the information.
And you're right about that. A lot of people are squelch on this. Mike Gallagher is going to hold a hearing in prime time tonight. It's 7 o'clock Eastern time, but first he's going to come and talk to us later this hour.
That's right.
About the competition from China and how we stack up and how we need to face this competition today. So it's coming up later this hour.
We will see that. And now this on 2024.
Floridians are very pessimistic about the country's direction, about the Biden administration, but yet a majority of them were very satisfied and encouraged by Florida's direction. We've stood for the right principles. We've been willing to fight these fights when it's not easy. We got a record budget surplus, one of the lowest tax burdens in the country. We're #1 for education freedom, economic freedom, fastest growing state. So it's a good story.
The story is now being told of the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, touting his record and raising his profile. I want to bring in Karl Rove to talk about this. And Karl, good morning to you. A couple of videos have come out, one just yesterday, just a quick clip of how he thinks Florida is the blueprint for America. That's the title. Watch.
When the world lost its mind, when common sense suddenly became an uncommon virtue, Florida was a refuge of sanity.
And it goes from there. It runs about 2 minutes, I think, maybe 2.5 minutes in length. Here's what our Fox polling found over the weekend among Republican primary voters. DeSantis at 28%, Donald Trump at 43%, everybody else there in single digits. How do you see it, Karl? When does he take a bigger step, if at all, do you believe?
Well, first of all, he's very smartly not taking a step now. He doesn't need to. He's the governor of Florida. He's got a book coming out. It allows him to go around and talk about the Florida record and of what he's achieved in the state. And we learn a lot about him and his values and what his priorities might be. But you know, he doesn't need to become a candidate right now. If he wants to run for president, which I assume he does, he's doing all the right things on his own schedule in his own way. And I think that's smart. He's doing it in a measured way. He's taking step by step. Take, for example, this weekend. Rather than going to CPAC, which is a completely pro-Trump crowd, and having a number at the end of that weekend where he's made an appearance and then there's a straw poll and Trump wins the straw poll. Rather than that, what's he doing? He's going to Dallas, Texas, and Houston, Texas, and Orange County, California, and speaking to the Republican county committees, their big galas in each one of those places, making a lot of friends and avoiding what is going to be a sure story at the end of it. Oh, well, he came here and he obviously didn't make a big impact because Trump still took the CPAC straw poll, which is completely meaningless, but nonetheless would be the story coming out of the weekend.
Can I ask you about name ID and how important it is for someone to actually be known nationally? And how does DeSantis stack up? Because obviously President Trump had amazing name ID when he got started in 2015. What about DeSantis?
Well, look, he is the governor of Florida, which is a big state, and we've heard about him. But let's be honest about it. A lot of people don't know much about him. To me, the astonishing thing is he's at 28, and Trump is at 43. Trump has universal name ID. DeSantis had, well, they recognize the name. They say they've heard sort of good things about him, but they don't know a lot about him. They know a heck of a lot less today than they will know, say, in 6 months or 9 months. So if I were Trump, there's a reason why Trump has been punching down at DeSantis, and that's because on some level he recognizes how formidable a threat he would be, because the guy is just not even in the race, and it's already competitive. So Name ID matters, but let's not kid ourselves. As much as political junkies like the three of us think we know about DeSantis, the average voter has got about this much, and we got about that much.
Well, okay, so what do you think about this? Ronna McDaniel says every Republican nominee on stage should take a pledge to support the Republican nominee, whoever that is, okay? Donald Trump bucked that trend in 2016. And it writes, the GOP's presidential debate pledge, promise to support the nominee or get off the stage. Carl, how's that going to go over?
Well, it's going to be interesting because you're right. President Trump said that he wouldn't support the nominee in 2016 if he thought he was treated unfairly, and he's already made statements to the effect of he's not going to support the nominee necessarily. So I think the chairman of the Republican National Committee is doing exactly what she needs to do, and that is to say, if you're going to participate in the Republicans' debates sanctioned by the Republican Party, then you better be willing to say that you're supporting the nominee of the Republican Party. Now, it's not only Donald Trump that's got that problem. Governor Asa Hutchinson, who's former governor of Arkansas, who's thinking about running, has said that if he ran and Trump were the nominee, he wouldn't support him. So we've got this. Several people have got to deal with this problem, but Ronna McDaniel has one responsibility, and that is to be the chairman of the Republican National Committee and to help do everything she can to carry the Republican ticket to victory in 2024, and she's doing her job.
I sense some headlines from this story.
There might be some.
Forthcoming.
We would be watching and love having our fellow political junkie on with us today.
Thank you, Carl.
Great to see you.
There we go. Thank you.
There was a major fentanyl bust at the border, a single vehicle packed with enough doses to kill 50 million Americans. Wow. And this is just the latest in a string of escalating encounters.
Also, a city in Oklahoma absolutely ravaged by a tornado. We will take you inside the recovery effort that's happening today.
And a government watchdog issuing a scathing report on America's withdrawal from Afghanistan. It accuses the White House of poor planning and logistical laziness. Will the president be held accountable?
I do not regret my decision to end America's warfighting in Afghanistan and maintain a laser focus on our counterterrorism missions